Welcome to another episode of COWL Fans, the casual fans home for Overwatch League news. That was a weird pause because I used to say I popped off production there, and I'm not supposed to say that anymore.
But you just did.
So I did.
But we're not.
We're not. But I like them. I like the popped off guys. So appreciate them, I guess. They just got a plug from me for free.
Yeah, here you go.
What are you
Thanks
gonna
for
do?
everything you've done.
Mm.
Enjoy anime.
I do enjoy anime.
No, I'm talking to them.
Well,
Not talking to you. I was talking to you. I'd have a podcast with you.
gross podcasts.
What a quarantine thing.
It's such a quarantine thing, man. And quarantines are still happening, and a lot of places they're sort of cracking down on them a little harder again with the resurgences. So we're in this for a little while.
Yeah, certainly
Yeah,
does feel that way.
yeah. So what we're gonna do while we're stuck in this, we're gonna continue to have fun. We're gonna continue to enjoy Overwatch League. We're gonna continue to bring all of you some subpar content to give you giggles.
We are really just kicking this one off strong.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. I'm happy about it. What can I say? I like what I do. Oh man, so here, let's jump right in to the beginning. We are going to jump into our local hometown boys, the Mayhem, and their results from
Yeah.
this past week. So this past week, the Mayhem took on the Outlaws for the final week of the Summer Showdown qualifiers, and they took them to a close 3-2 for ultimately a win for the Mayhem.
Yep. Yeah, it was a lot closer than I think anticipated. Houston definitely looked like not only a stronger team, but this feels like a good meta for them. I think in a world where they couldn't play this double hit scan setup, I'm not sure they would look as good. But you get to play Dante on one of his stronger heroes. He seems to really enjoy the flankers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like Sombra, Tracer, those sorts of characters, and he basically just played Tracer the whole time. Um, they did not look as good when they had to have Linkser out for control. They definitely looked better when Linkser was in for the other map types, because Linkser has been looking good recently. All that Valorant seems to have reminded him how to click heads. And overall, yeah, it was just a really good map, or a really good match. To just dive in a little bit. I don't know if you want to go map by map or just kind of discuss the broader story
You know
of the
me,
match.
I'm more of a broader story kind of person,
Yeah.
but
So the
yeah.
story of the match, I would say there are two parts. The first part of the story would be the matchup between Dante's Tracer and Yaki's Genji. I think to the layman viewer, that would be the clear story of what's going on. It was the obvious difference in heroes that were picked, and it was either the Dante show and Houston are winning, or it was the Yaki show and Florida were winning, right?
Yep.
Where I think if you dive into why we ended up going to map 5 with Houston, I think you need to shift your perspective more so to the hit scan matchup of BQB versus Linkser, or even at times BQB being harassed by Dante basically constantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what maps we happen to be on and that we lost. Because it seemed and it feels like a problem that has existed but hasn't been able to be as exploited until we went up against Valiant last week and now again versus Houston. It's us on Widowmaker maps when BQB is forced into the Widow 1v1. I don't think BQB's necessarily been performing abysmally,
No.
but you could definitely tell he's a lot less comfortable when you take him off the Ashe, right? And he has to go into these Widow matchups. That was never really BQB's thing. Like,
Right.
that was the one thing we had Saya player for, was to play Widowmaker, even though we haven't brought him in much. But generally, the only time you've seen BQB need to play Widow was like he would play it on Oasis Sanctuary or things like that. It was never just, we're going to bring BQB in and you're just going to play Widow this map because it's Junkertown. Like, those would be those would be the only situations where we'd really get to see Saya player.
Right.
And it feels like we're really missing. You're feeling the glaring hole of no Saya player, because it doesn't feel like BQB is. I think he could do the Widow 1v1 if he wasn't also being harassed by a Tracer at the same time. He doesn't seem to know how to deal with both.
Right.
And when you watch these top Widowmakers in the league, like Linkser, like KSP, like Ons, when a Tracer comes at them, they could do a quick scope and shoot them in the head. Like, they put the fear of God in those Tracers. BQB never does that.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that quick scope, let me kill this Tracer kind of. He just kind of hopes he's going to get healed, tries to grapple away, does some unscoped like SMG left clicks. And BQB needs to be able to put some fear in these Tracers, because right now it just feels like a clear-cut way to defeat the Mayhem. I think Mayhem could just play the meta better now that we've had an extra week, and maybe we don't play Genji 100% of the time. We play Genji on maps that aren't clear Widowmaker maps, and we play the Ashe Genji, and then when we get to maps like Junkertown or really any escort map in the pool, hate our escort map pool right now. Maybe outside Watchpoint Gibraltar. You run the Tracer Widow, right? So
yeah,
that was kind of my big takeaway.
Yeah, I'm gonna say my big takeaway is because I recall in map 5 they decided Yaki's not gonna really play Genji anymore, and they put him to Tracer, and we did really well. And I feel like, did I get that wrong? You looked confused at me.
We didn't switch to Tracer until the second point of Nepal. We
Right.
didn't really run him on the first, I think, except for his like an emergency touch Yaki switch.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but that emergency touch came out successful. I really felt like when we made those choices to put Yaki on Tracer at the end, we came out ahead, and I felt like there were some times when Yaki and BQB were both of them were getting harassed by Dante. Like you said, it was really, there was a lot of time where it was just the Dante versus Yaki matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there were some moments where Yaki, we're us switching up our comp and Yaki moving over that Tracer, which he can go toe to toe with Dante. There's no issues there. And I think he could have stopped some of that harassment that Dante was putting on BQB just by swapping a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was giving me old Mayhem vibes, right? Like, hey guys, you're on this comp. You have another very functional, high quality composition that we all know you can do. Why don't you try that at these times when you don't seem to be able to make any traction? And I always remember back to when we interviewed Doc Haskell, and he said it's more important for you to switch than to retain your ultimate.
Right.
And he noticed that the teams that did that tended to win, and I just felt I was feeling that this past week as I watched the Mayhem play. Like, yeah, you guys, Yaki's Genji is fantastic, and sometimes it's working, but the times when it's not working, have you thought about trying Yaki's Tracer, which is also fantastic?
Yeah, it felt like I would say, like you were saying, he was going toe to toe with Dante. I when he switched to the Tracer, I feel like it was more so Yaki was going toe to toe with Dante when he was on the Genji, which was impressive. That's because that's a lot harder to do. But Yaki, small sample pool, But when Yaki switched to the Tracer, he obliterated Dante.
Yeah.
That map wasn't close.
No.
It just Houston might as well not even left spawn. They just got destroyed. So it really feels like the Genji, although it was good, like his Genji. What I haven't really talked about it because I'm focusing more on how did we get to map 5.
Right.
But if we just closed out map 3, the story of the match would have been how disgusting Yaki's Genji was. He set an all-time kill record on Volskaya, beating, by the way, Profit's performance on Tracer back in the inaugural season grand finals, which is
nuts.
Considered one of the best individual performances of all time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's the record he broke. So like, not only is it like, oh, he just broke a record on a map, a big deal. It wasn't like an all time in any map, but he beat that Tracer performance from Profit. So it absolutely ridiculous play from Yaki. Honestly, the entirety of the game, even when we were losing, Yaki was looking stupid good on this hero. I think if we could just, all right, we practiced this Genji comp, we got better with it. Maybe going into week 2, we start thinking about when is Genji good, when isn't he? Because you're also seeing some of these other top teams like San Francisco Shock, Philadelphia question mark top team.
We'll get there in a minute. We'll get there in a minute.
We'll get there. But these other teams are running, like you're seeing, maybe teams like Paris were running the same comp as us, but a lot of other teams are still running the Ash Tracer and seem to think. Moth said in the video that although the Genji is good, he finds that the Tracer comp is more consistent across maps and across different points of single map.
Sure.
So maybe we mix it up. Mix it up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Don't rely so heavily on one way to go, especially when you have 2 very successful ways to go.
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't seem worth it. We have another matchup that happened this weekend, the Fuel versus the Defiant, which, as we established last week, I am still moderately invested in the Fuel.
Right.
And so the Fuel beats Defiant this week, pretty convincingly.
Yes.
In comparison to their loss last week against the Titans.
Yeah, I think you could really chalk up the loss last week. I mean, there were some other issues going on with just how the tank and support line specifically were playing, but this felt like last week you had to case it out in a double hit scan meta. And then this week was a reminder that, hey, when Doha can actually play heroes that he's good at, he can be just as good as Decay. And there's a reason why before it really started to feel like it was becoming the Decay show, it was this might be the best DPS duo in the league.
Right.
And Doha just kind of got to come back and remind everyone, like, hey, when I get to play these heroes and I'm not just stuck on Mei as my projectile or something like that, like we're able to look good. And yeah, they just kind of wiped the floor with Defiant. It wasn't all that close from what I can remember.
No, it was very convincing. It's a good showing though for the Titans overall, which tells us that the Titans are leveling up. I mean, anybody watching, I think, can tell that the Titans have been improving by leaps and bounds week to week. Even when they were getting stomped one week and then stomped a little less the next week, you could tell, hey, this is a better Titans. And they were. They've continued to get stronger into a win this week against the Boston Uprising, which I'm not sure how telling that is, considering what they've been playing.
Sorry, they didn't even make the Summer Showdown. There are one team sitting out, is the Boston Uprising.
Right. So
confirmed worst team in NA.
Right. So not sure how telling that is, but this has been a really cool thing to watch. And I think this is honestly, when this whole Titans implosion happened, I thought that was really bad for the league. I still think that the implosion of an entire team is bad for the league. Don't get me wrong there. But the fact that they basically brought up a tier 2 team and in such a short amount of time have made them competitive with others of the Tier 1 teams, I think is very good for the league in general. I think it's good for the teams who are considering investing in players from Tier 2, and wanting to bring them up. Look, there's a very
Yes.
obvious and clear way that you can make them successful as you go forward. It's very telling of the Titans coaches, and I don't know if
Right.
they hired the coaches from this team or not, but it's nice to know that there's a way that this is going to work.
Yeah,
Not just think about it.
and it's like, okay, maybe they're not world beaters, they're upper bottom table at best, maybe lower mid, right?
Right.
This isn't that incredible of a team. They still got rolled by the Atlanta Reign on Sunday, so Vancouver still has places to go. But yeah, as you said, this is a rather new team of all tier 2 contenders talent, and they're beating these Overwatch League teams, right? And maybe Boston isn't the best example, and they haven't played Washington yet, but they look like a better team than Washington. And if you look at Washington's roster, you've got Stitch and Janu. They've won 2 stages of the Overwatch League. Arc has won 2 stages of the Overwatch League. Um, who else do they have? Aim God has won a stage of the Overwatch League. Um, Roar performed very well, went to like the semifinal, winners semis last year on the Gladiators, I think.
Yeah.
So like these are all outside Tuba, who happens to be their star player if you watch their match.
Yeah.
Sunday night. This is like that's a team where they're taking all these players who theoretically should be good, and it's not working as well as Vancouver Titans, who just plucked a team out of contenders. So I think it shows a lot of the strength of contenders. And remember, they didn't even pick up the best players available. Like third Impact and Team Doge were wrecking the team that became the Vancouver Titans. So there's even better tier 2 talent out there.
Yeah.
So I do think you're right. It's good for the scene in that it makes a case for paying more attention to our minor leagues, because you might just get as much, if not better, results than if you pick up these big name players from ages past.
Yeah. Which is awesome. Anyways, so the fuel really isn't as bad as we thought. The Titans are just leveling up, and then there's our tirade about the Titans. You could call
and
it
they were
a
in a bad meta. Fuel just Doha shouldn't play hit scan. Just don't do it, guys.
I was gonna make a funny play on words and call it a Titanic tirade, but then you started talking about fuel again. Now I can't do it.
So are you gonna throw a Titanic tirade over that?
I might throw a Titanic tantrum, you butthead. No, I'll be a big boy about it. So, Philadelphia Fusion versus San Francisco Shock. The game everybody has been dying to see all season long. It happened.
Yep.
And it was awful.
Did it happen? I feel like you could have blinked and it didn't happen.
Hold on, let me go check the schedule. Hold on. I'm going to go. No, it happened. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Spoiler alert if you didn't watch it, Philadelphia Fusion get rolled. If you were planning to come back to this VOD because you were expecting some high level Overwatch, you're going to see some high level Overwatch from the San Francisco Shock. I could guarantee you that. But you're not going to see this clash of titans that we were all I guess hoping for. This was my fear that maybe Philadelphia Fusion weren't as good as we thought. But you were hoping for more, I think. And it just Philly didn't show up. They got dominated. They could not contest Ons. Hisu really seemed to be struggling, and Ons just, it's not fair. It's not. How did the San Francisco Shock of all teams scout this? Like, nobody knew who Ons was. Nobody knew. And how is it the San Francisco Shock, with all the clout in the world, is able to scout this random no-name player and have him be this ridiculously good? Like, it's just, it's not right. But Ons came in and he just asserted his will on the server, and that was the end of it. Yes, Striker popped off too, but really it was the Ons show. Like, Ons was taking Carpe out across the map as on the tracer. Like, he couldn't even get within half a map of Ons. Like, no pressure put on him, just absolute pure destruction. Um, and I'm not sure how many teams even have a Widow or a hit scan of the caliber to even begin challenging the San Francisco Shock. Like, I hate to say it, but I don't think Mayhem puts up as good of a performance against San Francisco Shock as we did last time,
Oof.
going up against that Ons. If that
Yikes.
same Ons that showed up against Philadelphia Fusion comes up against Florida, it's just, there's no chance. Like, maybe like the Valiant have a shot at it, but anyone else, it's just, I don't know. I don't know, fam. They look spooky.
Look at where we have come. Look at just. Did you just hear the words that came out of your mouth versus the beginning of the season? Maybe the Valiant have a shot at it. Versus when this whole season started and we were laughing at the Valiant,
Yep.
thinking that's the worst team in the
still
league.
have I have a trash Pokemon in Pokemon Sword named the LA Valiant, who turned out to be one of my favorite Pokemon, and I still use him.
Wow.
Still a part of my team.
Wow.
So, but spoiler
I'm
alert,
so far
he's
behind on
really good
Pokemon.
until I get to like the very end game, and now I don't like him as much. So we'll see how Valiant do in the actual playoffs.
Oh, big
But
yikes.
a little premonition from my Pokemon adventures there. But yeah, I mean, there's been tons of stories like that too. Like, look at me. I was also just talking about the Florida Mayhem, as well, and
Yeah.
I'm talking as about those teams as the other two top teams. So what a world we live in. But
What a
you definitely
wonderful
don't.
world.
After Fusion's loss, convincing loss to Mayhem, and then just the absolute desolation of the Philadelphia Fusion against the San Francisco Shock, the weight of the name of the Philadelphia Fusion does not hold what it had once did.
That's true.
A couple months back.
And you know what? That's honestly probably a bigger hit for the Fusion than the loss was.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's really telling when a team like Florida went up against the Fusion, beat them, and then goes up against the Shock, takes it close, and then Fusion go up against the Shock and just absolutely get decimated to the point where it looked like they didn't even show up. That is really bad because a lot of the teams that I feel like the Fusion is, bless you, a lot of the teams that I feel like the Fusion is beating, I think probably could beat the Fusion, but there's that mind game, there's that mental, oh, this is the Fusion we're playing, and they give them probably a little too much respect, and I think the Fusion have lost that now.
Yeah. And I think Fusion have had an easy strength of schedule.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest. Like, when if you look back and like look at some of these games, they haven't played the strongest teams, and it makes you question their wins. Like, yeah, they have a lot of wins, but like going to map 5 with the Toronto Defiant, going to map 5 with the Atlanta Reign.
Yeah.
Atlanta Reign has been destroyed by every other top team for the most part. Like, even the declining LA Gladiators can beat the Atlanta Reign. Atlanta Reign looks spooky against bad teams, and they gave Fusion a spook.
Yeah.
Paris has beat them twice. Granted, it's been close, but Paris is upgrading to levels like that we haven't seen yet. They're finally starting to click after this week, integrating Sparkle into the roster, and then with the Genji buffs, it seems like they're utilizing their players more intelligently, like I've been asking for them to do in social media. They're playing the meta more, and Paris seems like a team on the rise. And Fusion has to show something, especially in the Summer Showdown, I think, to prove that they are even a top 4 North America team. Because right now, I'm not convinced that they could beat Mayhem, Paris, or Valiant.
We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, the bracket's coming up, and we'll see exactly where they land.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see who they pick as well.
It's true.
Because they'll have their choice of the litter more than likely. It'll definitely be something to see who they think they have the best shot against.
Yeah. So before the show, I always ask Howler how the Apex people are doing, because I am a true casual fan and don't really get up in time to really enjoy and appreciate them. But Howler goes back and watches the VODs like a real champion. And you told me something about Hangzhou, and it seems like Hangzhou, after they just started rising, has already started falling.
Yeah, it was a rough week for Hangzhou. I think their strength of schedule might have been rougher than we give it credit for. Like looking back now, I think it could have also been the strength of the teams they just fought. But if you remember the Hangzhou Spark, a little recap from last week, just took Guangzhou Charge and New York Excelsior to map 5, beating New York and just losing in a heartbreak to Guangzhou. Which are those two, like, and we're looking like they were competing for we're the best team after Shanghai Dragons position in the Asian region after that weekend. They were right in the conversation with their new additions. This team was looking good. And then they come out, they don't win a single map this week. They get 3-0'd by the London Spitfire and then 3-0'd by the Shanghai Dragons. And they were not particularly close 3-0s. The match against London, and I'll probably elaborate about this a bit more later, but it felt like London just had a better read on the meta, I think. But then a lot of the Shanghai match, they were mirroring. It was just, you got to see how much better and more coordinated of a team the Shanghai Dragons were, and they didn't have the answers for what Shanghai was throwing at them. And it was a bit disappointing to see, particularly what felt like poor performances from the Godsby Architect DPS duo, which should be a lot more potent than it was.
Yeah.
Got like, especially against London, Godsby had a very poor game. And he did slightly better against Shanghai, but not really all that much. So yeah, it was disappointing after seeing such an exciting team last week to just kind of see Hangzhou come out and wet the bed. It wasn't pretty.
Mm-mm.
I was really looking forward to the Shanghai Hangzhou match. It was a Philadelphia Fusion San Francisco shock instead.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, one thing we only barely mentioned, the fact that there weren't hero pools this week.
Yes.
I gotta say, to me, that's pretty telling of the fact that we as spectators, and you probably less so than me, but at least me as a spectator, if you're not watching to know what the hero pools are, you may not necessarily feel that impact of them as strongly as the people who are paying attention.
Yeah, and I think one of the big issues was the heroes that got banned away. They banned Asia last week, or the
past 2 weeks.
Couple of weeks with the hero pools.
Mm-hmm.
So when the North American teams had their hero pool released, all it meant was we get to play Break now.
Yeah.
And then there was a patch change as well. So you did get to see these cool matchups of, we had like Genji teams versus Tracer teams all weekend. And that was fun.
Yeah.
But that really didn't have anything to do with the hero pool, right? Maybe Brig being around helped Genji a little bit more be played if we saw that patch hit while Brigitte was banned. But that was about the only change. You saw a lot of the double shield Ash Tracer with Brig Baptiste instead of Zen Baptiste. That was like the one difference. But
Yep.
back in Asia, Sombra Echo, baby, we back. You saw a lot of Sombra Echo. Sombra Torbjorn was very popular as well. Double shield comps still exist. And you would see Genji every once in a while. You see a lot of crap in Asia. Genji, New York really likes to favor the Mei. Guangzhou will favor Mei at times too, depending on the maps. So a lot of it, you see a lot more team color in a lot of different styles in Asia, and you could feel the release of hero pools with a lot of echo play in Asia and Sombra, and a significant amount of Sombra as well. So
cool.
yes, I think to the NA viewer you wouldn't feel it, but Asia was celebrating.
Well, that's good to know. So next week we start the tournament bracket, which we've already sort of mentioned as we've been discussing where we think teams are going to wind up on it. But first we have to get through the first week. And you know what? The first week is being heavily influenced by some weird standings that maybe don't represent where the team's actual strengths are so well.
Yeah. Yeah. Vancouver Titans are 4th seed. We were just praising Vancouver Titans, but that wasn't 4th seed praising. Yeah. That was maybe 9th seed praising.
Yep. It's a weird one. So just to sort of recap, we have Vancouver sitting at number 4, Philadelphia sitting at number 3, which we sort of just all were sitting here talking, going, I'm not sure that Philadelphia is number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta Reign comes in at seed 2. And so the only seed that really feels right is the San Francisco Shock.
Oh, yeah.
Now, to be honest, I'm not certain who really deserves seed 2 or 3 or even 4.
Yes.
So for all of the strangeness of these, where it doesn't necessarily feel like these teams deserve these seeds, I really don't. I don't think I have a better pick for who deserves these seeds either. The whole standings just feels very uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I definitely don't think it's those teams.
Right.
I think it's I'm. Can I go on Atlanta Reign rant?
Okay. I'll allow it.
There's been so many brackets coming out from like casters too that have Atlanta Reign going to the finals, and just you absolute buffoons. you fools. You've drinking the Kool-Aid. You've there's been so many examples of just watching the Atlanta Reign all season. They play against these bad teams and they look stupid good when they do it. They just 3-0, they knock them out of the park. It's not even close, and you're just like, wow, this Atlanta Reign team is really good. And then Atlanta Reign plays someone whose brain is like larger than a pea, and they just don't know what to do. They're like, Mom shot me. He's not supposed to shoot me. And they don't know what to do. And they fall apart time after time after time if they meet any modicum of resistance from a team. Keep in mind that we were just talking about how the meta didn't change that much. They got bodied by the LA Gladiators in the first week of the Summer Showdown qualifiers, playing this Ash Tracer meta. And the Gladiators would then go to map 5 the week after against the Washington Justice.
Yeah.
Like, by all accounts, Gladiators are a team whose most people are still saying, stunks are down. But Gladiators still beat the Atlanta Reign, so I don't understand how we always get this stupid recency bias with this team. Granted, I am a Florida fan, so I have just natural disdain towards the Atlanta Reign. But there's nothing that shows that has told me that this team is good. They have no impressive wins, not a single one under their belt all season. And if Florida Mayhem was having these kind of results, people would still be talking about how Florida is such a garbage team. But for whatever reason, Atlanta Reign is this team that we remember that they beat the San Francisco Shock in the playoffs last year. Everybody had them in their early power rankings as like a top 3 team in North America, if not the world. And so everyone wants Atlanta Reign to be this good team that we feel like they could be.
Yeah.
And the second they 3-0 the Vancouver Titans or the Toronto Defiant, we want to scream about how good this team is. But we need to remember they just played the Toronto Defiant and the Vancouver Titans. And yes, they could end up being like, this could be a Florida Mayhem story of the May Melee where, okay, we were beating up Boston. How good is this team? And then we actually prove it. But Atlanta hasn't put anything, any kind of result yet that should be justifying those brackets. Because in the May Melee, no one was putting Florida in the finals. Nobody. It was a big shock. And Atlanta Reign getting to the finals should be just as much of a shock as Florida Mayhem getting there last showdown was. And it's really annoying seeing all these analysts put them in the second slot. Like,
Yeah.
come on. They beat the Canadian teams who literally had to compete to get into the May Melee. They were the toilet bowl of last season of the May Melee. Just pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah. So, anyways, Mayhem picked the Outlaws.
Oh, all right, here we go. No, we're taking our foot off the brake and we're going right back. So the Florida Mayhem picked the Houston Outlaws, and now we have all these analysts and desk talent and casters picking the Houston Outlaws beating the Florida Mayhem because the Outlaws went to map 5 with us. May I remind you how much we destroyed them on Nepal? And I just gave you this overview of what was going wrong. Particularly, it was Widowmaker maps. Now, the map pool is very different. We get to, it's first of all, loser pick. So if Houston manages to take a map off of Florida Mayhem, we could just say, no Widow maps anymore, right? And now also the heaviest Widow maps are the Escort maps. Those are the most Widow-friendly stages. Escort in the Summer Showdown is the 4th map. We should be able to just knock Houston out, provided we don't have as abysmal of an attack as we had on Blizzard World. That just felt like, I don't know, lack of preparation, or sometimes just on Assault on first point, you have like, you miss your one team fight, and then, well, I should say hybrid on like point A that works like an Assault point.
Right.
If you work up to your ults and you just happen to mess up that fight, sometimes you lose a map. It's just you missed your window. And that's kind of what it felt like for Florida there. And then we also had like our second big C9 of the map that I really think affected our mental. But I don't know. I really think that Mayhem should be able to 3-0, and I think it should be pretty convincing. Like, I think we learned a lot from last week. Mayhem, I do believe, are the better team, and and Houston just had such a good map pool against us. Yes, they'll get to do loser's pick, but I don't think they'll be able to exploit the map pool as much, considering if they do pick a map that they're able to beat Florida at.
Florida gets to pick the next one.
We just get to counterpick them, on the next one. So maybe it does go to 5 again, but Houston don't win map 5. Houston, I just don't see a world where they beat us on Control or Assault. Yes, I can see worlds where they win on Hybrid and Escort, but that won't win you a series.
Yeah, I think that's mostly fair. I will say every now and then Florida, just like they had a bad attack on their Hybrid in Blizzard World, sometimes they get that same kind of thing going against them in their Assault maps too. So they're very they struggled mentally in the Houston game. I think that's something that they need to be careful of in this next Houston game.
Yeah. I do think Houston's the strongest team out of the 4 seeds. So once again, I feel like Florida put themselves in the most difficult situation. But ultimately, if you want to be the best, like I would love just Florida to have as easy a road as possible to get an extra win on the board somehow to get to at least the semifinals, right?
Right.
But this is you have, if you're gonna go toe to toe with San Francisco Shock, you need to be able to beat the Houston Outlaws. And I feel like that's what Florida Mayhem wants to be. They want to be one of these top teams, which is awesome to say. And even in the interview with Moth after the Philadelphia Fusion match, so he posed a question: was we all thought Fusion were the team that were going to be able to go toe to toe with you. So who do you think is the team that could give you any kind of challenge in the Summer Showdown? And he said the Florida Mayhem is the team they fear. So like, I think people are looking at, especially this Houston match, a little bit more harshly. I think Houston are better than we give them credit for, but Mayhem are even better than that. So
yeah,
I don't know where my point is going with this. I feel like I'm like circling back to the same thing.
You're just talking in circles. I was gonna let you go for like a minute longer, and then I was just gonna kill you.
Yeah, but Mayhem should win this match. I do. Can we talk? I want to talk about Mayhem's road to getting to the finals as well. Because I think, especially if you're a Mayhem fan and you're watching this, one thing you're going to want to watch very closely is who picks the Florida Mayhem, and hope that teams doubt us. So, because you're going to assume that the strongest perceived seed is going to be the team that's left to fight the 4th seed, right?
Sure.
Because teams theoretically should pick the team that they think is the weakest to play them. Because the top 4 seeds get to, in order, pick out of the bottom, out of the 4 that are coming out of the,
right,
I don't know what you want to call it, round of 16 or whatever, that are coming into those quarterfinal matches. They get to pick out of the bottom 4. And now your bottom 4 are looking like they're going to be the LA Gladiators, the LA Valiant, the Paris Eternal, and the Florida Mayhem. Maybe it doesn't end up that way, but I think those are just the smart picks, right?
Right.
Those are probably the more accepted of the results. LA Gladiators almost certainly get selected by San Francisco Shock. They're the clear weaker team. They went to map 5 with the Washington Justice.
Yeah.
They probably get picked right away. And then you have the question of who does Atlanta pick and who does Philadelphia pick? And you really want to hope as a Florida Mayhem fan that we get picked as that on that side of the bracket, because I don't think you want to play Shock in the semis. And if you get perceived as the strongest team and are left to play the Titans, yes, you have an easy match, but you're going to get destroyed in the semifinals. I think if we get selected by one of those 2 teams, that's our best shot to get back to the finals and get another 2 wins for our overall regular season record.
Yeah.
It might be difficult. We're gonna have to play probably a team like Paris or Valiant or maybe even Fusion if they decide to show up, right?
Right.
It's not gonna be super easy, but it should be easier than having to run into Shock.
I think that's fair. One thing that I think you're not really giving any consideration to is the potential for someone like Atlanta to pick Florida out of spite.
Yes, I didn't give it a lot of attention right now, but in my bracket, I do have Florida Mayhem being picked by Atlanta out of revenge and spite. Yeah,
Atlanta has cannot speak to the personality of the organization, but the players' personalities. There's a lot of spite in there.
Yes.
And I think that lends itself well to, interacting with the Atlanta fan base as well. So
Mm-hmm.
to go ahead and commit to something like that out of spite, I think would
And
only
if they
serve
want to
them
start a
well.
rivalry, this is how you do it. You select the Florida Mayhem and you say, "You guys picked us last time. We thought you were we we called you like a joke or whatever. We made fun of you guys, and then you destroyed us. We're here to show you that's not that was a blip,
Yep.
right? Um, I don't think that's gonna be true. I think they're gonna make fools of themselves, but maybe
Sure.
I'm a bit biased here.
Sure.
But it's a good way to if you really want to build this rivalry and they're as interested in it as it seems like the Florida Mayhem organization was when they made that selection. It's the spicy pick, it's the fun pick. It builds a rivalry, which is I think always oddly positive
Yeah.
for a sports brand
Well,
to
and
have those sorts of rivalries.
it's a convenient rivalry too, right? Like, let's think about this. I drove up to Atlanta to go to the Atlanta homestand.
Yep.
Lots of Florida people drove up to Atlanta to go to the Atlanta homestand. That's what happened. I mean, not even people who were cheering for Florida, just Floridians drove up there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will drive down from Georgia to come to a Florida homestand, especially if their teams are playing. So I think if two teams that are geographically not terribly far from each other develop that rivalry, I think that's good for both teams because it creates more fans in the seats, especially for their games.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, and more Florida fans will want to show up to watch Florida play Atlanta
yeah, so
than any other team.
good things in my opinion, just good things.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we're running late. Can I talk quickly about the Asia bracket?
you
Because I
can.
think
That's the
we
last
all
thing on there.
agree San Francisco Shock.
We're really not running
But
terribly late. Actually, we're
oh,
we're
okay,
we're we're right about on our normal time.
cool. So looking at Asia, the expectation for normal people looking at the Asian bracket is Shanghai wins. Guangzhou probably makes it to the finals against Shanghai, and Shanghai wins. That's kind of your safe statement. But I want to throw out, and everyone's trying to have the spicy pick. They're trying to have the spicy pick be Atlanta getting to the finals, to be Houston beating Florida, but those aren't spicy. That's like the Taco Bell mild sauce. That's nothing. That's nothing. The real spicy pick is Shanghai Dragons losing in APAC. And there's a lot more evidence, I think, for it. Yes, Shanghai Dragons are really good. They're a great team. They have clutch potential. But especially compared to a team like the San Francisco Shock, I feel like Shanghai, as of late, has shown more cracks in the armor. If you remember back to the May Melee, so the Asian teams had to play, well, Shanghai especially, everyone but Guangzhou had to play 3 matches, including finals, if you were going to win the whole thing. So Shanghai played 3 matches. 2 of them went the entire distance. They got taken to map 5 in the very first round by the London Spitfire, and then they went to map 7 and had to reverse sweep the Seoul Dynasty. So yes, kudos for them for doing that. It was very impressive, but I don't think going to map 5 or map 5 and then map 7 is as impressive as someone like just sweeping the team, right? It definitely shows that they're good, but I feel like they're a lot more vulnerable than we give them credit for. And now I'm looking at them going back into this bracket as a more vulnerable team against other good teams. And frankly, I just feel like they don't have the best read on the meta. I mentioned before that they're playing a lot of Sombra Echo,
Yep.
Torbjorn, Sombra, um, where London Spitfire are playing a lot of. They play the North American meta, the Tracer Widow, and when they've played it, it has looked really good. They almost upset the Shanghai Dragons last time. They destroyed the Hangzhou Spark, which granted the Shanghai Dragons did the next day. But that shows to me that if London are able to beat Hangzhou Spark just as much, just as strongly as the Shanghai Dragons did, that London, when the meta is unlocked, looks to be a top team. And I think this time, with a little more practice with these comps, and then I think just a even better understanding of the meta than they had last time when they were playing a little bit more similarly to Shanghai's style. Glister still played more Ash than I think Shanghai was willing to, but I feel like they have a better understanding now. They're playing more double shield. They're not trying as much dive. Um, and I feel like the London Spitfire could really upset the Shanghai Dragons. Now,
Okay.
I don't think London goes all the way just because Guangzhou, I think, could just switch, match, and beat them. But I feel like Shanghai could. I don't know. I'm not convinced on this team for the Summer Showdown in this meta.
Howler's Asian hot takes. Shanghai, maybe not the best.
Maybe not the best.
Yeah, I think was it Wolf or Kilios? One of them is gonna fight you on that. Except that they're never gonna see this, so they won't fight you on that.
Yeah. They just think teams in Asia are automatically better. Like, I don't understand. When we're in North America, it's the Korean teams are better, and then when we're in Asia, it's just the fact that they're literally playing in Asia. The mother soil is breathing life into these teams that North Americans can never understand.
It just doesn't make sense.
The yellow dust goes into their lungs and just superpowers them. I don't know. But yeah, I definitely think they could be wrong. I think Shanghai are the smart pick if you had to put money on someone. Shanghai's the smart pick, but I think if you're looking for the upset, trying to say where do I place a bet that's safest but can make me extra money because, Shanghai is, or because the odds are not in that team's favor. I think that's the match you bet on, is Shanghai being upset in the semifinals, if not the finals. Even if they get against Guangzhou Charge, I'm not convinced that they beat Guangzhou either. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a tough road again for Shanghai.
Well, that's okay. Tough roads make it better.
Yeah, true. I think you need to start toughening yourself up, Shanghai, because San Francisco's so good right now, and I'm afraid of having the Philadelphia Fusion versus San Francisco Shock
all over again.
Having that happen all over again when Shanghai finally gets to play them.
Yeah, don't want that. Hey, so we've had a great episode this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to check us out on social medias like Facebook and Twitter. We're at COWL Fans, COWL Fans, and we're available right now on YouTube and Facebook. So come and check us out in either place as we work through whatever the heck else we're gonna do, because we don't spend money on this podcast, yo.
Yeah.
This is our fun, cheap hobby. So, but we like to do it, so we'll keep making them for those of you who are still watching and viewing. So thank you again for tuning in. I'm Aluramore.
I'm Howleir.
And we'll see you next week.